because now I have to.
Sorry.
Had his chance.
I know, I had the chance, I just didn't listen to Mom. Well, good morning, Commissioners. Good morning. The EMA and the airport budgets themselves are very small, and hopefully we can go through this quickly, but answer whatever questions you may have in regards to either budget. We would like to start with EMA. Made very little changes to the EMA budget itself. Sandy, I don't know, did you provide this document, or
I
did you
did.
just?
They should have that. Y'all have that in your binders?
Because this is really what I'll
Behind
be
the EMA,
discussing,
there's
is just
like
these
a
line
narrative
items.
page.
Everything else stayed the same. These are the only
Yeah,
items
it might not be
that
turned the right way, but it's in there.
You turn.
I was just punching holes and everything and putting it in there, so my apologies.
Thank you for not redoing the paper.
Saving paper, yeah.
All right.
Now Keith, I do show an increase on the salary and wage line
That's what that's what that is.
from the 2020 budget was 42.
Right.
The 2021 budget is 66 and
That's
some
correct.
change. And I think that's because of Al being added
Correct.
and Jeff Statham being moved over.
Correct, from fire to EMA, and those salary and wages are now going to be properly aligned the way they should be in this upcoming budget cycle.
And along with that, the health insurance line increases too, because I think Jeff probably has he has the health insurance.
The insurance.
Through the county, yes. Social security and Medicare automatically calculated on the salary and wage line. Contract services.
For-
Keith did us a solid and got that cut in half.
Oh, for contract services? Yes, with contract services, we were able to go ahead and cut that by $8,000, and that was with the switch from Code Red for our emergency alert system. We were able to switch that to HyperReach, which reduced our annual output in contract services by $8,000. So that was a wonderful find by that great staff that I have. They're the ones that found, I'm not going to take any credit for it, they're the ones that found that savings, so I appreciate everything that they did there.
What's the grant expenditure is 20,000?
That's the EMP grant.
Oh, the Emergency Management Performance Grant. Based on the cert, we have there's 10 specific items that emergency management has to be able to do each year in order to qualify for the grant. These items are things such as, we have to have, such as the plan you all discussed and signed last night. Certain plans and programs have to be in place for the county for emergency management. Another plan is a debris removal plan, which we have in place. We have to be a weather smart community, working with NOAA, the National Weather Service. There's 10 different items that we have to have in place. Also talks about ACCG or county insurance. That has to be in place for flood insurance. So all these items combined allow us to apply for this emergency management performance grant for the state. And we get that right at $19,800 typically a year. And there's specific items that we can spend that money on. It's not a grant where we can spend on anything we want.
The revenue is reflected in the EMA revenue. Y'all don't have those numbers on there yet.
Restricted, why would it be in here?
I'm sorry?
If it's restricted, why would it be in here?
I don't know that it's really
Russ, can
restricted.
you explain
It-
restricted? I'm not sure.
When you get the money, are you restricted as to how you can use it?
We're restricted as to the items we can purchase. Let's say if I wanted to purchase a, Well, we have we have to go through FEMA's, what's called an AEL, which is an EAL, Equipment Allowance List. And that equipment allowance list, it specifically states which grants, federal grants, you can spend this money on. So if I wanted to purchase, let's say a new radio repeater for the county, I can do that under the communications piece, under this authorized equipment list through FEMA.
It's not really a typical grant contract. It's reimbursable expenses. Okay. Where was that budget? It wasn't budgeted this
Each year, it may differentiate in what we would get for that grant, but we qualify for that grant every year based on the fact that we have the county has an EMA director and a deputy director in the positions. Those positions have to be filled in order to be able to apply for that grant. So those two are key positions.
year. Okay, through July, we spent $20,000.
Correct.
And nothing was budgeted. So we really need to think about.
That's me, I'll fix that. On that budget amount.
I assume we would amend the budget. I assume we would amend,
Yes.
formally amend the budget.
I'll include that when we do some other amendments later on in the year, I'll include that when we'll get that.
Now,
I'll
their
get that
budget
fixed on my
cycle,
end.
the federal government budget cycle goes July to July. So it may be a little strange when we try to plug it into ours, because we won't get, that grant won't be issued to us until typically February of each year. We'll get the funding from the state and federal government, and then we have until July to spend that, July 1st to spend that money. Anybody ever watch the movie Brewster's Millions?
Yes.
Yeah. It becomes so difficult when it's specific on what you can spend that money on. I feel like Richard Pryor, is that who it was? I feel like every time that grant comes in, it's just, you have to line it up exactly on what you can spend it on. Just every year, I wish it was Brewster's Millions.
Are you, as a department, between you, Jeff, and Al, looking for every and any grant that you qualify for?
We hunt for every grant we qualify.
So does the county have funds, or is it your responsibility in your department to have funds? Same, I'm assuming with fire PPP grants. If you see a grant and it has to be matched, is there money available in the county budget to fund that match? Or does that come out of your?
Right now, there's not.
Typically, that would involve, if there was a grant available with the required matching funds, it would require a budget amendment, because we don't specifically budget for it, if we don't know that we're gonna get it, so. But, yeah, it would go through the budgeting process with an amendment.
And we do chase down every single grant we can find to try to bring in as much as we can. As far as EMA goes, so there's very few changes. We have nothing that we'll be requesting in capital this year for EMA. And the savings in capital, or in contract services, and we also took out, we had $200 set aside for repairs and maintenance each year and for vehicles. We also wiped that line item out. We don't need that because we also work with the fire department with the maintenance staff on our vehicles there. So a total of $8,200 that was able to be saved in EMA's budget this year.
I don't have any other questions.
Are you, in your plans, or are you projecting the need for EMA growth?
For EMA
Between
growth,
COVID, the census, the population growing and stuff like that?
for EMA growth, the federal government sets the guidelines on how many members employed in EMA per capita you have based on your citizens. So right now, The requirement from FEMA is that, the guidelines from FEMA is that if we have any a population over 20,000, we should have on staff a minimum of 2 people, which would be a director and a deputy director. And as you start increasing in population, then you start increasing in size as far as your EMA staff. And we don't, the next step up would be hiring another full-time person, but that's once we get into the population of about 40,000 people. So we go by, our staffing in EMA goes by the population size.
And do you have a contingency or a room in your budget, say COVID turns, we go in a very, in a bad direction? Here we go again with PPE and the whole deal.
Sure.
Are you prepared for that? And is the county prepared?
That was part of the
Covers-
increase in our
The supplies and
operating
materials.
funds.
Well, in the supplies and materials, you're increasing
Yes, sir.
a couple
And-
thousand primarily, specifically in anticipation of the COVID crisis.
Yes, sir.
Because aren't you reaching out? I mean, obviously, I know the answer to this, but everyone needs PPE and
Sure.
there's calling and stuff like that. So are you confident that you have what you need
Oh, absolutely.
now? And if you need, is there room in the budget?
There is, and that's why we programmed in an additional $2,000 in our supplies and materials budget for next year to be able to absorb some of that. And also working with the state, GEMA, we're able to get some supplies as well. Were there any other questions, commissioners, as far as the EMA budget is concerned? If you'd like, we can roll over to the airport budget.
Okay.
So for the airport budget, salary and wages, I'll just address that. This happened after the budget proposal had been put in. But one of the employees that we had, he's a full-time employee, he has since resigned. So that position was reprogrammed from a full-time position to a part-time position, which then in turn saved the county another $10,000 because we were able to justify needs based on the workload. We did a brief study on that, and we were able to come out with the answer that that position is best suited for a part-time employee, not a full-time employee. So we're now going to go ahead and move forward. We have applications that have already been turned in. We'll go through an interview process over the next week or so, and hopefully bring in a part-time employee here within the next 2 to 3 weeks on staff at the airport. So that.
What number do you have on that line for salaries and wages? Not the admin salary, but the,
Salary and wages, let's see here. The annual estimated?
well, the requested for 2021.
Oh, 2021, so I had kept that, I didn't change that at all.
Okay.
Just
Well-
because we didn't expect, this was an unexpected vacancy.
Well, here's what I have put in is on the admin salary is 40.
Yes,
And then the second salary and wage line is 21,840.
okay.
Does that, but now that 21,840 may be more for a full-time position
It
than
is.
part-time.
It
And I think I
absolutely
did this before,
We all did it before.
before the resignation.
Right.
So
So we're, and if you can,
what I need to, you think, cut that number by half?
well, I don't know if I have I don't think I have it here. No, just a standard, liability insurance that we have for any county employee. But that,
I need to,
I can give you,
Redo that line.
actually, HR has the exact amount on the proposal that I had sent to them, but I don't have that here.
that's fine.
But I just want to make you aware that that change is going to be coming up, and that happened after all this was submitted, so.
This admin salary, is that Jim?
No, that's Mike.
Mike.
Right.
But now, we may not need to have him in admin, we may need to.
I wouldn't think he would just be under salary.
That down.
But now we used to,
We used to have.
Jim in here, but we moved him out of here. Okay, good, that, and that would be appropriate.
I think there's also a very similar sheet to the one that you just looked at for EMA. Should look something similar to this in your proposal there. And those are the specific line items, minus the salary and wages for the full-time position and part-time, because that happened after this was already submitted. But these are the only other items that I was requesting a change with. So one of for the first line item now, that's the biggest change I feel in this budget, would be the facilities repairs and maintenance. Currently, there isn't a line item for that in our budget worksheet. I spoke with Sandy, and we're going to create a line item for that. It's going to be 522000, which will be the facilities repairs and maintenance line item. It may reflect on there already. I don't know if that's on there.
Actually,
But-
I made another decision on that.
Okay,
And I did this
beautiful.
yesterday, sorry.
Beautiful.
There is a capital outlay airport repairs line
Yes.
available, which is gonna be 541,200,
Okay.
because that's gonna be over $5,000.
Okay, so is that where we're going to program this into
Yep,
then?
that's
Okay.
where we'll be putting that in 541,200.
Got it. Thank you.
Sorry, like I said, I
Is
just
that
did
already in here?
Yes, it's down toward the bottom.
So with that, we have the 2 airport hangars that are out there on our property out there. Those hangars, the roof on those hangars, they need to be maintained. They've been out there for 10 years, and they've not been truly maintained. There are, where the aluminum roofing meets, there's seams that need to be, there's tape that goes over the seams, tape can be pulled up. There needs to be new caulking put down, because those buildings expand and contract with heat and cold and weather, along with rain and every other thing that can damage those. They've not been maintained, and they have to be maintained by an actual company that works on that style of building, not with your general contractor that does shingle roofing. It is a specialty type building that requires some specialty services to it. So with that, we're looking at about $4,000 per structure to have the roof maintained. There's screws, specific screws that were actually made for that structure. Some of those screws will need to be replaced, and some of the taping, all the taping needs to be pulled up on all the seams. They'll go around, make sure that there's no leaking within the roof on each one of the roofs.
Let me ask you this about
Yes, sir.
the roof on the hangars. It's obviously a special type of roof.
Yes, sir.
Not a standard. Is that something that's specific to the hangars, and we have to have it because they're hangars? Or did somebody just make a decision along the line that this is the roof we're going to put on these?
And I wish I had an answer to that. I mean, obviously, I wasn't here when the construction was done for those roofs, or the layout. But from what I understand, and talking to Mr. Worley, who was the guy, Robert Worley, who was out here building those hangars, he's still around. And he had said that basically with that type structure of a hangar, that's a standard roof that will go with that structure. So I think they're one and the same, that structure roof is the same that'll go over that structure of the building. If that makes sense, that's really what I got from it.
Well,
Is that really capital repairs?
I don't know that you can capitalize repairs.
Yeah, we've got to do, this is capital outlay, really.
Well, when I say that, I don't know that our threshold is $5,000, so anything over $5,000, the auditors will look at, but I don't know that we could, like, move it over to SPLOST and use SPLOST money for it, since it's more of a repair than a replacement.
to me, if we can't use SPOS money for it, we might should have it under.
It is under,
So I thought this was,
I'm calling it capital outlay, that's what.
yeah, that's what was throwing me.
We just need to
Well,
strike capital outlay and just say.
It would just be a name change, I guess I could just change the name on the account.
Gotcha.
I put it there because the auditors always want to look at anything over $5,000, and if they're all in the same account in every department, it's easier for me to pull that report. That just shows all of them in the same place.
Is that $5,000 for the expenditure?
That's our threshold is $5,000 for anything that could possibly be capital. That's what the auditors always want to look at every year, is anything over 5,000 that may need to be capitalized or not. And this makes the reporting easier when I pull reports from them, but I can change the title on that, that account. It would just be a name change on the account. It could just be airport repairs.
Even though the amount is zero, with the same situation apply for the capital outlay other equipment, it's still.
Well, no, now that, other equipment, if it's new, it could be used, it could be put on the SPOS
But
side.
if that's the case, it shouldn't be in this budget, it should be in the capital budget.
Right. If it's something
If it's
new, if it's not a repair, if it's, if it's a new, right. I don't know what I'm getting there for, but.
Would that be considered like if we needed to get other equipment, a specialized piece of equipment for the airport to move planes? Say a large, if we started bringing in jets and things of that nature, which.
Yeah, to me, that would be over 5, and it would be certainly the capital.
Airport repairs, I would assume that could also consider runway repairs.
I don't think you could do just straight runway repairs. I think it would have to be in conjunction with a runway improvement.
Okay, all right.
But now, that's just my limited knowledge of this stuff. Hubert's probably expert on that.
I'm not an expert on anything anymore.
You don't want to be.
I think we're talking airport maintenance, not repairs.
Okay.
It's maintaining, and then equipment, that could be computers or anything like that, any equipment we ought to have to have. Or anything else.
The other thing that is actually is good for us is the requested increase in the purchase of avgas. And I'll give you a brief explanation. Aviation fuel. Currently, we're at $10,000 for purchase annually of aviation fuel. We're doing actually another purchase. We'll have a delivery on Saturday of our second large purchase, 2,000 gallons of fuel for the airport. And what we've seen is an increase in, especially this time of year, when we have Georgia Forestry that flies out here with us. They have 2 aircraft based out of here now with the potential here in the future to have 3. Those aircraft, they continuously come back land, and thanks to Sandy, we were able to get our card reader switched to where we can now.
Is that working now?
It works wonderfully, thank you,
Okay.
very much. But that card reader now will accept the forestry's credit card for fuel. And we are selling fuel like we need to.
Well, it makes my life easier too, because now we don't have to turn around and bill them for that.
Yes, so.
I
we've
don't
seen
want to
the-
complicate things, but we're really talking about an inventory item, it shouldn't be in the budget. Gasoline is an inventory.
It is, and
So
we
shouldn't be in their
adjust,
budget.
well, but we have to expense it when we buy, when we purchase
No,
it.
it's becomes an inventory.
Well, there's an inventory.
It's an asset.
There's an inventory line on the balance sheet for airport fuel.
So does it really need to be in airport budget?
How, and I'm gonna show my ignorance here, how else do we allocate what, the money for it? I mean, let's say we don't put it in the budget and we go out and buy a bunch of that, or what?
It becomes an asset. It's like cash, or like receivable. And then when you bill them, you Use your
It just
inventory.
goes against the inventory rather than the
I don't want to
expense.
complicate it, that's.
Well,
really
yeah,
what I was
no, we
doing.
could do that, and,
You shouldn't have to justify buying more gas.
no.
I don't have a strong feeling. But it.
No, we could do it either way. That would, you
Maybe
know,
another year.
at the end of the year, when that adjustment is made for that airport fuel inventory, it would already be made. It's not one we would have to make special, you know, during the holiday
Well, that's not,
process.
I don't even complicate it here, I think we'll look at it next, 22 maybe.
I don't care either way, I just remember reducing it, so I'm happy to see that we need more.
Yeah.
So,
I am too. Are there any other questions on just those line items that are on there for requested changes? If you'd like to go over the 3 items that we have on there for capital, discuss that if you'd like as well.
Okay, personally, I don't have a question on it. And what we're going to end up with here is a requested budget.
Yes, sir.
And as long as we understand, what's being requested,
Oh, absolutely.
then we'll take that requested budget and go back and turn it into a final budget.
Understood, yes, sir. But if anybody has any questions on those 3 items, I'd be happy to explain why they're here.
I'm just happy to see that we're looking at $1,500 for the mower instead of $15,000.
Yeah.
I agree.
What?
For the area that we have to mow out there, we don't have to have a big number.
And we do have,
Tighter spots.
we've taken
Have to-
right. So the 0-turn mower that we do have out there right now, it's quite, I believe I'm sure you've all seen it. It's a large mower, but in a lot of those tight areas, they can't get it in there. So it becomes very difficult to try to get those areas. So this is what we'd be using that for. It's a
I didn't
smaller-
even know you could pay $15,000 or $20,000 for a lawnmower.
I bet you could pay more. Well, did you know you could pay
Well, I'm not talking
$21,000
about
for a
the
stretcher?
tractor Ones that go along the road.
No.
$21,000 for a stretcher?
Have you addressed the security problems?
Security problems are being addressed, and thank goodness that we're not having any problems right now.
So
Things
how
have been
did you
very-
address that?
Well, we've talked to the board. I know that there's a proposal out there right now to bring up some, a company possibly to come out and do some security site surveys. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to get some grant funding out of the airport through GDOT and/or the FAA for camera systems out there. So that's what we're gonna be working on next year, is to be able to try and get that, get security out there. Fencing is another big thing. We've already got that on our capital improvement project. So that's one of our priorities, is fencing.
Do you have everything you need for, after this past week's little issue with the airplane? Do you have all the equipment you need, say that could have gone very different? Could have had casualties and whatever, assuming the fire department, obviously your response was good. But at the airport, I'm flying my plane and I crash my plane. You have everything that you need on hand besides emergency?
That's all we can have is emergency response out there. The airport is unrestricted airspace. So as far as the materials and equipment required out there, it's minimal. So the only thing that we'll have is response from our emergency medical services folks and our fire, public safety.
So you don't feel that there's anything that you need at the airport as far as equipment to help with that kind of stuff?
That's, yeah, and that's easily stowed in the back of the pickup truck, which we have that, so, yeah, we have everything for that response. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you all.
Pam?
I do actually.
She'll stay.
Yes.
So I do have a question.
Yeah.
When the county does the budgets, and you hear all the departments, is there like a plan that you put in place for, say, the next year, 2 years, 5 years down the line? Because obviously, I see the need for emergency management, obviously, and the growth of the county, and with COVID and everything, we've just seen that there is a huge need for emergency management. Whether it be a public safety complex, building, whatever, there is a need. Maybe not today, but down the line. So is the county, when you do these budgets, do you have that in mind, or do you just go by what's needed right now?
We have it in mind,
Mhm.
but honestly, when we do the budget, well, I was gonna say we do what's needed right now, but we do what we can would be a better
Mhm.
description. We have a capital improvement plan that, where we put, for instance, new EMA building. The swimming pool is on our capital improvement plan. And we do that every year. It's a 5-year plan.
Could that be-
And we submit that to DCA, the Department of Community Affairs,
Okay,
and make it a kind of official, so to speak.
okay.
And by doing that, by having that plan, and most specifically by submitting it and having it approved by DCA, it makes us available. It makes available to us certain grant opportunities and so forth that if we did not plan for it, if we just decided, hey, let's build a swimming pool, we would not be eligible for any of these things. So it's not just important that we have the plan, 5-year plan, because we need to have one, but also because the ramifications financially, potential ramifications for not having one would be just too severe. So-
And have you all, like, pretty much told every department, given COVID and not knowing what's happening in the future with the election and everything, have you all said to every department, you need to buckle down, tighten up, or is it just, are we going?
We say that every year, not because of COVID. What we normally see, though, in all honesty, is, and I can't criticize it too much, I've been there and done that. Each department submits their own budget request, and Sandy puts all those together in the requested budget. Generally speaking, we can say buckle down as much as we want to, but at the same time, they know if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. So it would be extremely unusual for us to get a requested budget that is not got some things on there we feel can be pared down. Actually, the closest I've seen to that is what you've done here today. But so that even though we say, buckle down, we still get, I hope I get this kind of budgets. Now, Sandy will put all that together, and we'll go through it, and we'll get our questions answered on these things. Why do you need this? What's that for? And that sort of thing. And then what will happen will be, we will get, each of us will get a copy of that. That requested budget will also have an element in there that we're not discussing today, which is anticipated revenue. Because we got to balance the budget. So typically what we find is that there's more requested than we're anticipating coming in, which means we got to cut the budget. So we'll go through, and the ideal thing would be if we could go through and find enough things to cut that we just easily end up with a balanced budget and a nice little reserve line. For the last couple of years, last year, for instance, we had to cut right at $5 million out of the budget. First couple of million went real quick, and then it got tough. But we had to do it. So the tough part of this is not doing this and getting tough part is when we cut all we can easily. And now we've still got another couple $1 million we've got to cut. And we feel like what's left really is necessary, but we still got to cut another couple $1 million from it. But in the end, we'll do that. We'll decide where we'll make those cuts, and we'll have a balanced budget. So I guess the short answer to your question is, yeah, we tell them to buckle down, but see a lot of that, I don't think. And I understand that. I've got 40 years of corporate, if you want it, but if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. Background, so.
Well, I think for the average person, I come from a military background, 2 paychecks a month. You pay all your bills and you figure it out. If you don't have it, you don't get. So for someone who doesn't come to the meetings or doesn't ask these questions, I'm looking at my county government saying, I have to buckle down, so why are you?
And that's where that $5 million worth of cut, that's our buckling down, because similar to what you have to do, we pay the bills and see what's left. We have to do the same thing with the budget, in that we see what we think is necessary. And I wish it was as easy as saying then what's left, but in our situation, once we decide what we feel is necessary, rather than seeing what's left, more typically, we're seeing what has to be cut anyway.
And you also have to keep in mind salaries for county workers, because
Right.
it's a fact, people can't afford to work full-time for $7, $10 an hour or whatever, it just isn't.
One of the things that, and I know people don't realize this, I don't think our employees, to a great extent, even think about it a lot, but I came in January 1st of 2015. The county employees had just had a 3% increase. It was the first increase they had in 7 years. Since that time, there have been increases every year. Now, we were way behind the curve. I would love to have been able to say, okay, for 2015, everybody goes up where you need to be. Not possible. So what's happened is every year since then, there's been increases in salaries to try to, over time, start bringing people up. Now, there's been some situations where that time has to be shorter than others. Paramedics is a prime example of that. There's been others that because they didn't have the emergency nature to them, kind of lagged behind. And some of those folks are the ones that we're really going to try to hopefully take care of with this budget. But for the last several budgets, we've kind of concentrated on one department. We've said, okay, let's try to bring these folks up. Next year, we'll try to bring these folks up. There's nobody here, I don't think, and I'm making a very general statement here now, but I'd bet actually, there's nobody here that's not making a good bit more right now than they were January 1st, 15. Hopefully, they're not making as much now as they'll be making in 25. At some point, we've got to reach parity with all of the counties around us. And we're making progress on that. It's just, we have to do it over time.
Well, as a mother of teenagers, I mean, I would like to see Gilmer be the place that my kids grow and maybe go to college and come back to work. So I would like to know what is going to be there for my kids, say 5 years down the line and stuff like that. I think all of us
It's
would.
one of the reasons I sit in this position and
Yeah.
do this, because of my kids.
And
And all of our kids, we know all of our kids want to be here.
And that goes far beyond just the budgeting that we're doing here today. We have economic development meetings in terms of what can we do, what do we need to attract, why are we not attracting. The number one problem we have in that regard right now in Gilmer County is affordable workforce housing.
Housing?
Affordable workforce housing. The average home in Gilmer County is not what somebody at $10, $12 an hour really can afford. We want to bring in jobs, but only so many of those jobs are going to be, higher level pay. There are actually quite a few jobs in Gilmer County right now, but they're not the high paying jobs. And the people who would be willing to take those jobs can't find an affordable place to live in the county. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have right now, is we need affordable workforce housing. And we're trying to accommodate it. We made some zoning changes and so forth. But that is something that's, I guess the bottom line is always boils down to budgeting, but that's way beyond budgeting too. Because we have to involve private sector in so much.
And also taking into consideration, but health insurance benefits, because that's a big plus for any county worker. Also, but I've been very impressed. I feel like the department heads that come in here, I don't see anybody going crazy just asking for like,
No.
I mean, they're very, I think in the last 2 years, they realize we're not rolling in the dough.
And that's what
And
makes it
everybody's
so
done.
tough doing
Yeah,
things
I
like
know,
that.
you're right. So,
On the EMA needs, you gotta remember too, you have to be able to operate food and breathe.
Yep.
So it's not just EMA that needs to know.
you gotta be able to get there.
Well, I would, obviously, I'm gonna be here for the roads part, but it all goes hand in hand. And I think with the CARES Act, obviously EMA, public safety, all that got a good amount, so I would like to see the roads. But I also do know that I can tell you, I wish you could come in Kucera and fix my road. We can all come in and say what
We're
we
so
want.
happy we don't have to fix the road.
We have the same situation. I live in River's Edge, and, we have to maintain our own roads. Fortunately, we only have 6 miles of them. But on a smaller scale, it's the same situation as what this way. They're just big enough that they have their own paving company, pretty much. We're obviously not.
Well, I think it's easy for someone to sit on my end and bark and get upset, but I thank you for all the work, because I do know all the hard work you guys do, and it's not an easy
Thank
job
you.
at all. So,
Appreciate
I
that.
do thank you.
Thank you for sticking up for us when people do bark.
Yeah.
'Cause I've
Well,
seen
the
you do
best
that.
way to, before barking, come to a meeting and ask questions.
Absolutely. We wish more would do it. That's why we're not. But we are doing our meetings live on Facebook, so, and we've got more people, not this one today. Fletch always does it. No, but so that we have more, that people realize, and I'm just as guilty, because I just voted for him and said, I'll take care of it. I trust him.
But roads is a huge issue. I mean, we all know, we see it on social media and stuff, and people are upset about the roads. But I can come to you with 1,000,001 problems and stuff like that. It's a lot easier being on one side of the computer barking, but to actually, and to me, I'm from Wisconsin, you think these roads are bad?
Right, right. Even the city of Atlanta, they're terrible right now. And they're
But
paying
thank
a
you
lot
for
more
what
taxes
you're all
than we are.
doing, because it's not an easy job.
Y'all have good week.
I'm gonna get her out of here.
Oh, we like for it to stay.
What, the roads on Monday, Tuesday?
Rose.
Thanks, Peter.
Tuesday at 2:30. It'll be roads, solid waste, and Shaw, so, yeah. Tuesday at 2:30.
Thank you all.